Hey everyone, Tony here. Hope you're doing well. I have a special guest with me here today, the CEO of Uphold, JP Thieriot. JP, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
JP, I'm a big fan of the Uphold exchange. I think a lot of folks in the Ripple and XRP community were very excited when you guys were pretty much the first to offer USD fiat pairing with XRP and making it very easy to purchase that specific crypto. And obviously you have other cryptos as well. So I'm really excited to be speaking to you and learning more about Uphold. So thank you so much once again for joining us.
Not at all. Pleasure.
So I think what will be helpful is if you can start off with an overview of Uphold. Tell us about the history, tell us about the services you offer, what countries you're available in, and so forth.
Sure. So Uphold was founded in 2013. I suppose in that sense, we're part of a generation that would have included companies like Circle and BitPay and so forth, Coinbase being before us. We were really different right from the beginning. We weren't an exchange where we don't run an order book. And I think our view of how the industry would evolve was very, very different from everybody else's. And in some ways, although it's self-serving for me to say it, prescient. So long before blockchain or even stablecoin became common terms, that was the direction we were heading in. But back then, the way we phrased it is, this is a revolution. It will do for money what the internet has done for every other type of information, but it is unlikely to have Bitcoin replace the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency, or actually of itself represent any kind of mass consumer value proposition, because it's solving a problem that kind of doesn't exist. Merchants don't want to add a layer of foreign exchange complexity to their day-to-day lives. They don't necessarily want to take something that is slow and complex and strange, and they can't pay rent, taxes, employees in. So we were the first people to ever put dollars, pounds, euros, and other people's money, the definition of money being that thing that doesn't change in value from 1 week to the next, right? A Japanese yen is not money for me as an American. It's an investment. Right. It's a speculation, as is Bitcoin. And Bitcoin is obviously an even more volatile and exotic one than the Japanese yen. So the original idea was, how do you get these revolutionary rails, this thing underneath this thing called Bitcoin, which completely disrupts our notion of traditional banking and finance, and how do you get it to speak to people's money? That was our challenge, and that led to many subtle directional differences from everybody else. We obviously, a lot of the people who use us, a lot of your constituents, are people who speculate in crypto, and we've tried to make that easy and cost effective. But we don't have a traditional trading interface, and we do the graphing and all those sorts of things we could have done if that was the direction we wanted to head in. So we were more about being transactional and being a platform than being a trading house or an exchange. And really, and tell me if I'm being long-winded about a question about our origins, but if we trace it through to today is really where it's beginning to pay off.
Got it.
I think something like Brave and the BAT token, right. Brave hasn't even really launched their full view of how they can improve the way we all consume the internet, getting rid of sort of parasitic adware that deprives us of our privacy and makes our use of the internet unnecessarily slow and burdensome. And so they've been sort of phasing it in. It's a very noble, very big vision, and it depends on something called a utility token that's an actual utility token. In other words, it's not a utility token to avoid being categorized as an equity security or a debt instrument. It's actually a utility token because it really isn't fish nor fowl. It can't be either of those two things in function, and it can't be dumb money. So programmable money, utility token, call it what you like, but in order for that ecosystem to work and for the various constituents, publishers, advertisers, and us, the end users, to benefit, it requires a thing like Uphold, a platform facilitating all those movements and conversions. And so we made a bet on Brave a long time ago,
right?
And I think that 2019, after this last hype cycle has flattened, 2019 is going to be the year of the real utility tokens rising into view, stable coins, and ultimately security tokens, which will become a thing, and where Uphold is also really well positioned insofar as seeking the appropriate licensing to be able to do that and being very early in doing so. So at any rate, it all gets back to we're a platform, we're driving transactions, and I think without us, these folks that, to Robin's earlier point, have done the hard work of really creating these amazing ecosystems that have absolutely organic and meaningful use for something called a security token. It all winds up in nothing if you can't convert it into fiat currencies and things that people can use and move off to legacy money networks that they require for their day-to-day existence.
Right, right. And which countries are you guys currently available in? I know you're available worldwide, but I'm curious, as far as major markets.
I think the stat we throw out is like 184 countries. I think we're bigger than any of our peers in Latin America. So a lot of these real uses that I'm describing, getting out of people's rapidly devaluating home currencies into something that's a better store of the fruit of their labor, is something that's been where we've resonated. So I think our third biggest region is the north of South America.
Wow.
I think in order it's like United States, Europe, north of South America, and less footprint in Asia, but pretty global.
Pretty interesting about the South America as far as a major market for you guys. A common question I get asked all the time on YouTube, on Twitter, Facebook, whatever it may be: why can't I use Uphold in New York? Can you give us shed some light on that?
Sure. So, yeah, hopefully we'll get there soon. We've been trying to move forward on a bunch of regulatory fronts in a bunch of different capacities. So the focus has been in trying to get our broker-dealer license, and that ultimately is a dialogue with the SEC and FINRA. New York's state MTL situation is unique in the sense that it's the only state in the United States that requires this thing called a bit license. So Uphold can actually operate in New York, but as I've had complaints, and most of the time from friends of mine, hey, I'm in your thing, where the hell is all the cryptocurrency? And it's like, oh crap, you live in New York. So all they're seeing is dollars and pounds and euros and ultimately fiat currency. So we're hoping to have that issue resolved. It'll probably be in the latter half of 2019.
Got it. Yeah, I think everyone kind of complains about the whole bit license set up in New York. So I think every business has to deal with it there, as far as related to crypto at least. Now, something that a lot of folks were very excited about Uphold, in early 2018 was Greg Kidd, the former Ripple executive, who gave you guys a round of funding to essentially list XRP and work on Ripple-related projects. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Sure. So Greg is on our board of directors. He's a very close partner of the firm's. He's a remarkable guy. I think most people know this because it's out there, but he was the first investor in Square. He was the first investor in Twitter. He was the first investor in Coinbase. So he's a sort of one-man, preternaturally gifted VC firm, basically. And on top of that, he was a Fed regulator. So he's in a cohort of one insofar as that regulatory experience intersecting with that nature of venture capital, basically. So his vision for how this industry should unfold and how it works to the benefit of mankind is very much in line with our own, insofar as creating global access to things that have, to date been the sort of exclusive domain of very rich North Americans and Europeans. Things like U.S. public securities or venture capital or private equity. Tokenizing these things, fractionalizing them, making them available on mobile devices around the world. That's a very liberating possibility for a lot of people who just haven't had anything like that kind of access. And then underneath that, more rudimentary financial services like access to affordable credit and cross-border remittance and other things that have been very expensive and painful. So we share a worldview. We share a worldview on where these things should go. He's very, we're very mutually committed. His portfolio is called Hard Yakka.
Yep.
And you will see some Hard Yakka announcements here in the next few weeks that will include Uphold and some other companies that I don't want to talk about because it's his announcement. But he's recently participated in some other very exciting companies, and so it makes us all sort of a family pursuing a common goal, and where I think what we're able to achieve in the collective is actually fascinating, because it's when you have 3, 4, 6 companies working in concert, it's almost like like the Industrial Revolution for crypto or software. Amazing how quickly things can be achieved when you have different companies working on different verticals that are then put together to create this intense wonderful offer.
Any amount of information that you can disclose around Ripple related projects? Just curious, if it's okay if you can't.
No, well, yes, I can. So we love our Ripple community. They are, it's almost like the Ripple army. They're passionate and very involved. It's interesting because one way I can monitor what's happening in this business is I look at a social feed and things are going up and down the screen all day, and a couple of things that have come up. So here, taking the pulse of what I perceive the Ripple community to be commenting on. One of them is when is Earn and Borrow going to launch? And so the little scoop I can give you is stay tuned. Hopefully next week is the answer to the question. And we've gone out of our way to try and make sure that a return on Ripple is among the first cohort of products we're putting out there, which isn't easy, because doing so involves some need to hedge with counterparties, and suffice to say that it's much easier today to hedge something like Bitcoin than it is Ripple, but we've gone to extra gymnastics to try to provide something for the Ripple community. And then another comment that I find sort of interesting is one around how slow it is for people to do an ACH transaction from their U.S. bank account into Uphold, where very annoyingly it can take up to 8 or 9 days. And the first thing I want to transmit about that is that has nothing to do with deficiency of Upholds. It has to do with the deficiency of the U.S. ACH system, which is not nearly as efficient, for instance, as the European equivalent, SEPA, where I think we can do next day. But a lot of our XRP constituents say, geez, it's been 9 days, why don't you use xRapid? I always feel saying, guys, I don't think you understand what xRapid is, right? It's a tool that's meant to improve on the current realities of correspondent banking in an international transfer context. And in that regard, we've contemplated using it for that nature of purpose inside of our business flows. But really, the XRP constituent on Uphold's frustration is an intra-US problem with ACH. From our point of view, ACH has this amazing long-tail fraud risk, but it is something where one could conceive of XRP being used in the same way it's used in xRapid to fix an inefficiency with the legacy banking system. XRP could theoretically be used in a domestic context as well. So, so I encourage your XRP folks to talk to Ripple and say, hey, do a deal with Uphold where you guys could fix this issue. Because if we did a deal with Ripple where they were providing the nature of liquidity that they're doing in an xRapid context to solve correspondent banking, we could, as an example, give instant ACH to our Uphold XRP users. But that would involve doing a deal with Ripple and being creative. But again, it's not on us. We do it as quickly as we possibly can.
Well, I think you just opened the floodgates because the XRP community is going to make it happen. So I'm sure this video is probably going to get about 5,000 to 6,000 views, and on Twitter they're going to go crazy. So I'll make sure to rally the troops to get that done. Now, can you give us a bit of a breakdown, high-level, quick overview of Uphold, Earn, and Borrow? Your new services you announced in 2018. I think folks are definitely interested about that.
Yep. So as mentioned, the Earn product is going to roll out next week in partnership with Cred. I don't want to be a spoiler before those formal announcements roll out next week, but having looked at the product, I think it's a very sexy product. So should I think stimulate a bunch of interest, and then Borrow on to follow on the heels of that, probably 4 to 6 weeks later would be my guess.
Got it. So what else can we expect from Uphold in 2019? Anything you can disclose as far as things may be coming in a few months? Obviously, you just talked about Earn and Borrow launching possibly in the next week or so. But what else can we expect later this year?
Well, I think the two big ones are our plan to launch fractional U.S. equities. So today, insofar as the seamless movement between dollars, pounds, euros, gold, Bitcoin, Litecoin, what have you, imagine if anybody's been to our transparency page, we tier it all out, but an entirely new tier that is Apple, Google, Tesla, Berkshire Hathaway, Disney, available in $1 increments and below. So I don't think anybody's done that before. That's going to be very exciting and should be really interesting. Again, in terms of the historic wealth creation engine that U.S. securities have been, opening that up to global access is an interesting thing. And now also you don't have to have whatever it is, $200 to buy one share of Apple or $300,000 to buy one share of Berkshire Hathaway. You can have $1 and participate in those securities. So that's one big one. And then the other one is a lot of people will be familiar with our old virtual MasterCard program. That was very popular. In our view, it wasn't a really good product. It was sort of an MVP. We've been working really hard on relaunching both a virtual and physical program that's going to be 10 times better than the previous one. We hope to have that out by mid-year as well. So the equities and the virtual and physical debit cards are very high on the list of what's going to roll out in the next 6 months.
Wow, those sound very exciting. I'm very curious to check that out, especially is it the fractional trading you said is the name of it?
Fractional shares.
Shares, got it. So where you can buy $1 of an Apple stock or whatever it may be, or Tesla. That is pretty cool.
Yeah. Or you can decide to have your paycheck paid to you in Apple stock, or essentially it makes it digital. All kinds of possibilities will come from it, but the basic starting point is yes, people will be able to seamlessly move between.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Awesome, very exciting stuff. I can't wait to see that. And finally, Of course, this is not financial or investment advice. What is your personal outlook on the crypto market for 2019? What are you expecting to see, and as far as growth and things along that line?
Yeah. So I think as a company, what we're expecting is a slow year. Obviously, the crypto market's largely capitulated, having lost 80+% of its value in the last, I think it's 11 or 12 months. It's going to be a shaking out. So a lot of the coins that were launched really made little sense, and were done because it was possible for the first time, and one didn't have to go, kneel at the throne of a sandhill venture capitalist to get funding for a wide swath of new ideas. But as would stand to reason, most of those ideas weren't necessarily viable or particularly good. And so if you look at where Uphold's positioned, I imagine people say, well, why have they chosen that mix of companies to be involved with, or why have they listed BAT back then, or Cred, or LBA token, or Dash? And the reason is, we're a platform, and we partner with companies that have developed incredibly viable or exciting business plans, and wherein there is a central role for a real utility token, which really hasn't sprung into the world yet. BAT is going to be the first one that does, in terms of what they're rolling out here in the next month or two. It's again, it's something that's trying to achieve a noble purpose and improve the way we all consume the internet. Yep. It has a use for the fairing of value within an ecosystem. Again, in their case, involving publishers and advertisers and us, the end users. I think it's a compelling value proposition to the end user. In other words, is it worth it to you to have your internet experience be faster, more private, and convert what would be the ad burden, or replace it with something that's much cooler, which is to say, the browser knows that you, Tony, like, for the sake of argument, fly fishing. Mm-hmm. But instead of, serving you all this insidious stuff, right, what results in is, hey, Tony, would you like us to pay you $10 in the form of BAT token to watch a 15-minute video on a fly fishing destination in the Bahamas? Right. And the fact is, you might want to do that, and you'll get paid for it. That's the notion. You're getting paid for your basic attention. It's a more efficient deployment of advertising dollars than this mass thing that slows down our lives. So it's really cool, and it's the first. And I don't think I can name names, but behind that, there are another half a dozen exceptionally clever, very valuable concepts that also have need of a utility token in the middle. I think 2019 is going to be the year that these coins leap into view, and I think hopefully help regulators understand that a utility token isn't just a dodge. It's a thing. It's a new thing under the sun, and it can serve a greater good, and it can be massively adopted. The second one is, I think, stable coins. Obviously, Tether has had problems, so a lot of new coins are sort of feeding on that whale carcass. But digital dollars and euros make a lot of sense and have a lot of real use cases. It'll also be the year of the security token. I think we're really well positioned to play strongly in that in the early going. Mm-hmm. So basically, sideways market, the shakeout continues. I think for the stalwarts, the Bitcoins and Ripples and Ethers of the world, it's probably a good thing. It's a lot less crowded, a lot less noisy. Those virtual currency status cryptos, probably represent a flight to quality. Mm-hmm. So I think they're in decent shape and should probably at some point start to recover. So hopefully by the end of 2019, you have a smaller, much more high quality field with a lot of really clever ideas having sprung into view.
Got it. Yeah, absolutely makes sense. I'm in total agreement with you. And we have to bring utility and have actual projects that have working products and look to, solve a real world problem, not just the speculation aspect of it. Awesome, JP. Thank you so much for joining us today. And everyone, I will put a link in the description. Check out Uphold if you haven't already. Sign up. I'm a big fan of Uphold. I use them to purchase my XRP. It's just so easy to use. And there's, of course, other tokens like the basic attention token and other cryptos like Bitcoin and so forth. So, JP, really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Not at all. Thank you.
And we would love to have you on back again, as things progress on your end, you have any major updates. I'm sure the folks here would certainly want to hear from you again.
Also, it did occur to me we didn't talk about universal protocol, so maybe the next time we do a call, we'll talk about that, because there's another area where Ripple and XRP could really benefit. So we'll save that for the next call.
Awesome. Part 2.
Awesome.
Thank you, JP.
Nice meeting you. Take care.
Take care.